And maybe Eric, you could give us the detail on the Mueller situation.
Sure. I sent something over to Rebecca about 5 minutes ago, so I'm surprised she doesn't have it up on the screen already. But I did a good workup, I think. I think it really breaks down all the potential options and puts the board in a good position to make a decision going forward here. I mentioned to Rebecca the other day, I know we took a little bit of a pause here, and I apologize for any delay related to it, but I think it was worthy of just taking a pause to make sure everybody understands all the options.
Okay.
I can go through these in detail if everyone can see it okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but why don't you walk us through it since.
All right. So option one, as it stands right now, is staying with the current Mueller meters. And it's broken down by the per meter cost, the radio, some of the supporting washers that go along with it, the wire that would be needed, assuming 20 feet of wire, whitewater price, which factors in the labor time, supervision time, tracking time, all at the appropriate prevailing wage rates that go along with it. And I just put a miscellaneous charge in there related to potentially some consumables if needed. So it breaks down both of the meters in option one and option two, which, as you can see, between option one being staying with the Mueller or option two phasing out the Mueller meters with Neptune meters, the costs are pretty close between the two.
Yeah.
So how can we stay with the Mueller meters? I mean,
So you can stay with the Mueller meters, but they are discontinuing the current radio setup. So the new Mueller meters will come with a new radio configuration. And the old reading device that you used for the Mueller meters in the past will read the old ones, but it will not read the new ones. So you would need to purchase new equipment to read the new Mueller meters and old Mueller meters. And that's what's detailed below in the additional equipment. So the reading equipment is $86.70. Supporting software is $3,379. And then there's an annual maintenance fee related to that equipment of $2,755. So there's a cost piece for just the core meter component and replacing the meter that you have there. And then you have the equipment costs with going to staying the course with Mueller. You have the option number two, which is, let's say, starting tomorrow, if you wanted to go with the Neptune meters, that's the cost for replacing a Neptune meter. And then you have the equipment costs down below, the additional equipment, because technically there would be additional equipment required for the Neptune option as well. I know there's been some discussion about utilizing some equipment from Eastham, and in a pinch that could be done, but I think it's in the best interest of the town to have their own equipment. And in working with Ty Sales, there's some notes over to the right there about the belt clip transceiver, and that's the option they recommend for being that there's only 300 meters presently installed. In the future, you could expand to a more robust system for the drive arounds, and there's costs associated with that. I don't have those costs for this right now, but we have what we would need to go that route right now at approximately 350 or so meters. The software cost for the Neptune system, which is the Neptune 360, and the annual maintenance fee, which is an optional component for the belt clip receiver. So it comes out at about $6,800 approximately in additional equipment needed to move forward with that. So we already have the equipment to read the old Mueller meters, and to move forward to Neptune, there are some costs associated with it for equipment as well. So for whitewater, unfortunately, we'd be reading the system with two different technologies, right? But theoretically, you would translate into either option 2B, which we would start to phase out and replace the old Mueller meters and radios, and that's the cost. As you can see, it's the same as option 2. And if we were to replace 300, assuming 300 meters, you're looking at the cost associated with option 2B being approximately, again, these are budgetary numbers, of about 115,000 to replace all of the meters that are currently Mueller in town. So
Okay. I'll reach out to,
I'll pause for Jim for a minute, though.
I'll ask Rebecca if she can let you in, okay? All right. Rebecca, can you let Kurt in?
Doing it. I'm doing it right now.
He is right now. Yeah, you're okay. All right. Sorry.
No worries.
Okay. All right, so let me ask on the reading equipment, what about for the billing with, how would that impact on our billing?
You're currently set up to, with everything that you've done so far and the costs associated with that, you're set up to read the current Mueller meters with the current hardware that's utilized to gather that information. There is still some file transfers and things like that that go along with that, but we can still read that if you chose to move on to the Neptune option. We would get the new software and everything else. And while I haven't personally worked with it, my understanding is that Penachuk has experience in working with the software, and it should be a fairly seamless transition there between the Neptune 360 and Penachuk being able to take and interpret that data.
Right, well, that was my understanding, that Penachuk had the capacity or the ability to utilize the data that comes out of the Neptune meters without any additional bridge to our system.
That's my perception as well.
But so this does not, if we were to remain with the Mueller meters, there could be an additional expense above what the additional equipment costs are that you've represented here.
No, I think the option 1 up top is the like per meter cost, and then you would incur the 14,800 to purchase the new reading equipment and software and annual maintenance. Now, again, I can't say definitively whether throughout that process, if additional work would need to be done, as you said, between Penachuk from a bridge standpoint, whether any additional adjustments. I just can't say with all certainty there.
All right.
Excuse me, Tom Flynn here. That reading equipment, we have some Neptune or Mueller now. We're going to have to get a new one to read the new meters. Is that correct?
So yeah, Tom, for the whether the new Mueller meters, you would have to get the new hardware regardless. So if you didn't change vendor on that, they are no longer supporting the older radios. The new hardware will read the new meters and the new radios and the old Mueller radios and meters. But
That's $8,000.
that's 14,000. Well, yes, the reading equipment's 8,600 plus the software and the maintenance. So to stay with Mueller, you're still looking at about almost $15,000 in costs to be able to read the new meters going forward and the old meters.
See that? Okay. Now, the other option, the old meters in, and then when we get new meters or a replacement, with Neptune. Correct?
So yeah, option 2 assumes, let's say going forward, you still have the Mueller meters in place, and we're able to read.
How is it then that we get a whole new system for reading from Neptune, we have to add on to our other now. So we would have a Mueller reader and a Neptune reader, and it's cheaper than going with the Mueller.
Correct.
So you're not really adding all that much equipment to go to Neptune.
It doesn't. It's pretty close. Now,
No,
this
it
is,
isn't. It's $5,000 difference.
no, that's what I'm saying. Like if you look at option 1 versus 2 there's definitely cost savings in the additional equipment required.
How come it's so much more? 8,000 versus 3,000? Just for the reading equipment?
Yeah, for the reading equipment, it's a different approach on the reading equipment. I have all the supporting cut sheets for all of this equipment to be able to look at it and understand it in more detail. But this belt clip transceiver, based on the amount of meters you have there within town currently, and even within the short-term plans, that option they feel is more than adequate to support collecting that information, and that's the cost associated with it. Now, does Neptune have comparable equipment to what Mueller is offered for collecting that? They could very well come in and around the same cost. Yes. So there's a package that goes in the car, has a laptop, has a whole system for collecting all the information that very well could cost in a comparable range to what Mueller says we need to have. So
The belt clip doesn't work. You've got to go for the whole system. So it'll be about the same.
yeah, I think it's more about as the community expands at some point with additional connections, that it may just make a lot more sense to be able to collect that data in a more efficient manner, to do it with a more robust system. But in the immediate need right now, it's not necessary.
No one's going to talk. How about the annual maintenance?
So
What's
again,
that? Replacement?
that's per the vendor, and that's what their annual maintenance is related to the hardware and maybe the software as well. But the belt clip transceiver there's a lot less equipment involved in that, and that's an optional annual maintenance through Neptune.
So I would appreciate Rebecca or Kurt if you have an opinion on this.
The question I kind of had for Rebecca was, what are we currently sharing with Eastham that is in these? I think we're already sharing reading equipment.
Yeah, well, as of right now, we have 2 meters that have been borrowed from Eastham, and we've put them into 2 residents or 2 properties. And those are going to we're going to need to use their meters, their equipment to read those 2 meters. That's as of right now. My opinion is, if you want it, Penachuk may charge us more at this point, because if the new reading system doesn't match with their billing records now, that could be another large cost for you to bridge that reading.
Right.
I don't know. I think, and like you said, with us growing, down Briar Lane, and I have Squires Pond Road now that is considering connecting the entire street. It's just something to think about, like if we just move to Neptune, or if you want to see and go with Mueller. I don't know. It's totally up to you guys. I think their reading system with their presentation was a lot. Kurt can agree or not, but the way he presented the reading system, that I can be able to go in and look at all the customers, even though I don't have to bill them, I can answer any questions that come in. That was with Neptune. The Neptune representative presented to us, I think last week or the week before, and it's a really cool system. It's kind of, as I think Eric put it, kind of Crayola-like, because it's so easy to use, where the Mueller system is not. And I can't go in right now to see any of our water customers and what their current bills are, because Penachuk has all that. With Neptune, I'll have access to all of that information without having to do anything except answer questions from customers. And now if the customers call and ask for information, I have to go through Penachuk to find out what that is and then get back to the customer in itself. With Neptune, I can just look on the computer real quick, give them their answer, and send them on their way.
There's two other differences that I saw as well, in favor of Neptune. One is that, as Rebecca said before, there's several steps, there's several steps in taking Mueller data and then having to manually convert it to be acceptable as a file for Penachuk to actually pull it into the billing system. So there's a bunch of front-end loaded steps that basically are falling on Rebecca that are manually very intensive, that go away if we move toward Neptune. Rebecca might have more to say about that. The other thing is that if we wanted to in the future go toward a different billing system, meaning either quarterly or monthly or something like that, it would be prohibitively more expensive to stay with Mueller meters. The Neptune, because of the way the Neptune meters read and the way the software works, it's basically very, very easy to do reads and get them into the billing system, and then have that data both accessible for Rebecca for customer questions, and then also available for Penachuk to send out the bills. So I did see a big difference there. The last difference I saw was with Neptune. I think we don't have numbers here to look at what it would look like if we had if we ultimately want to go to a real-time management system, which would give us access to meter information on a real-time basis. The value in that is that it would help us with leaks. It's much easier to be able to spot a leak if you've got real-time meter information, because you can see which meter, this meter last week they only used X amount, and this week they're using, 30X. So, that's a big advantage. And it sounded to me like the Neptune option for being able to have networked meters would be less expensive. So just as another consideration. Eric, I don't know if you had any additional information on, that part of it, but those are kind of my comments.
Yeah, no, I think it was more about just getting this part right and getting the information in a good, clear format for everybody to look at, and really hadn't gone much further than that. We can certainly work with either vendor from an AMI standpoint, being able to collect all of that data real time. But I don't have that information for this meeting. It was really just these specifics with these three different options here.
Well, it seems to me from the way the discussion's going that we're going to go with Neptune. The question is how we're going to go with Neptune, 2, 2B, or 3.
And 2B is more of that phased approach, where we're moving forward and using Neptune, but we have a phased plan in place. And again, these are good budgetary numbers. Things may change over the period of time that's decided upon for phasing them out, but we go through and ultimately you're replacing 300 meters to a tune of approximately $115,000. And with the additional equipment costs specified in there, it ultimately works out to approximately, $122,000. And option 3 would just be us coming in wholesale right away and doing a focused effort on swapping out all the meters in town.
What would the time frame be for B as opposed to 2B as opposed to 3?
I think that would kind of depend on the approach that you guys would like to take within the town. I mean, The other meters are working. The challenge is having two systems, right? Trying to
Right.
use the Mueller reading technology and the Neptune technology. There's just challenges and extra time and work to come along with that. But deferring some of the costs over, let's say, a 2-year project, maybe there's value in that.
Because we're going to end up paying about the same amount, whichever way we go, going to Neptune. Right? If we go to Neptune, in the long run, it's going to cost about the same. Because all you're adding in the B and C, or B and 3, is a number of meters.
Yeah, I mean, it's 300 meters, and then as you do additional build out in the community, there's adding additional meters in. It's just what's going to work best ultimately financially and logistically within town.
Eric, I have a question about East Ham's experience with the Neptune meters. Have you any information about, are they satisfied with using the Neptune meters? Is there any discussion about changing that out, or are they going to continue with Neptune meters?
I haven't heard otherwise.
Okay. And from your experience with other users out there, do you have many customers who are using the Neptune meters?
I personally can't speak to that one. As I'm, you guys know, like my experience and on the water side of our business is less. So, I mean, within the organization, I know we've worked with a whole array of different meters within our different groups and things like that. I do think that as Russell was working with you initially, I would default to his recommendation, in all honesty, with the experience, knowing the players out there in the industry. That's why he brought this to your attention, because I think he would have been looking to put the town in the best position possible with, good equipment at a reasonable price. And I think that's what the recommendation was.
Right.
The other thing that I'm recalling now is that we don't actually have to replace the Mueller meters either to get the advantages of moving to the Neptune software. We could just simply retrofit the radio and then replace meters as they fail, because the Mueller meters, my understanding, Eric, was that the Mueller meters will work with the Neptune radio.
Absolutely agree. I guess the only piece in that lies in, and you'd have to kind of refine the numbers a little bit, but when you think about all the coordination that goes into getting in touch with homeowners, arranging for time to get into the basement and access the meters, run the new wire for the radio and things like that, overall, you're probably going to save money in just doing the meter at the same time. But again, these are some of the options that the board and the town have. To your point, you absolutely could go in, replace all the radios, use the existing Mueller meters that are in place. We would then be able to use one reading system and the Neptune reading system with the Neptune radios, leaving the existing Mueller meters in place. And as they fail or as you have problems, you could start to phase that out as well. That is another option.
The other thing is that in the process of replacing all the radios would be moved from any ones that are not outside already would have to get moved to the outside, which would allow us to maintain them in the future from the outside of the building.
Much better play and positions you much better for the future well, first of all, it's going to be easier to get good readings with the current system. And if you go to a real-time system, you're in a position to do so without any additional work inside the homes.
And we have, right now, Rebecca, how many failed reads do we typically have? It's like,
I think there were 90, we got a good read of 93 meters. So it's probably about 13 to 17 meters that did not get read this time around.
so it's, we've got like 10% failed readings right now.
Right.
because of
And
the
honestly,
location of
I'll tell
radios.
you, the sounds of it, the Mueller customer service is a lot, the way the Neptune made it sound was Neptune was going to be a lot easier to work with. to get through to Mueller to help me with the water reads was very difficult this time around. It always is, just to try and get a tech person to be able to help me remote into my laptop and figure out where it went wrong. I just feel like maybe their customer service in helping me transport the reads up to Pennachuck might be easier as well.
Neptune thing, but I think it's more option 2, we do not have to go to the board.
I apologize, Tom. I couldn't hear you real well.
Option 2B would be, we wouldn't have to go to the board. Spend $6,864 replacement costs with the meter.
Tom,
To go to the board to do it all at once.
Tom, you were kind of, you're cutting in and out for me too. I don't know if it's the microphone or if you're on phone or computer.
I'm on the computer.
Okay, maybe just if you
Then I'll
speak.
keep facing it a little better.
Oh, there you go. That is better. Yep, thank
Okay.
you.
Now, if we go with the 122,000, etc., we have to go to the board.
We have to do what, Tom?
To allow us to
Yeah,
spend
here.
the 122,000.
Again, stay directional to your, wherever your mic is.
Okay, how's that?
There.
Okay, now, would we have to go to the Board of Selectmen if we go with the $122,000 option?
Well, if, I mean, one of the things we were talking about with, when Russell was helping us with this, was trying to phase this in over a period of time and working with Whitewater to include that in as a phased in cost year to year over a period of a few years.
I
don't
did
know.
put those numbers together for you too, Jim.
Right.
I took the $122,000, just again, assuming with this, with the budgetary numbers we have there, and over a 3-year period, it ends up being about $3,700 extra a month to amortize the cost of this over a 3-year period.
Right.
I'm still asking, at what point do we have to go to the board for permission to spend the money?
I don't know that you do, because if we do it through it, from what I understand, and please correct me if I'm wrong, if we do it through Whitewater, we already have a contract with them. So as far as I understand, because of the contract, you don't have to go through the select board. It's an acting contract that you already have.
Right.
But I was wondering, if we could get into all kinds of delays. If we have to go.
Yeah, basically, if Whitewater's financing it, we'd do a change order to their contract, and it would just affect the renewal cost for the contract. The next budget.
Makes sense.
Can we use any of the money we've just been, given by the state for this?
Well, I think we could use the housing choice funds. If there's a balance left there, we can certainly appeal to them to use the balance. I expect that's going to be around 30,000 that we could use. We just have to get authorization from them. They already authorized the use of.
I'm on a conference call. Bye-bye.
To me-
Housing Choice has approved the use of approximately 50,000 for the SCADA system. So I think that we could go back to them and ask for the balance of it to be used for this upgrade for the water system, which I believe they would be amenable to.
Which would be like basically then, Jim, making a first year down payment, and then have Whitewater pick up the other 2 years.
Right. I mean, from everything I've heard, it sounds like we should consider the 2B phasing this in and I just, bite the bullet and go with Neptune.
I agree.
Yeah, I think that makes the most sense, but I don't think, I'm not, let me put it positively. I'm comfortable leaving the Mueller meters in place because I don't think I think it's gonna be a lot, they're still reliable. I don't really have a problem with replacing Mueller meters when they fail. Just getting all the radios replaced so we get onto one reading system and one software platform, but then let the meters fail on their own over time, because it's almost double to replace the meters at the same time.
So, but do we know whether or not there would be any additional cost in keeping the meters, beyond the period that that Mueller's no longer going to support the existing reading software?
No, that was what I'm saying. Replace all the radios, because once you replace the radios, we're on a single Neptune reading system. With one software, one reading system, so we wouldn't even have to worry about the Mueller craziness in terms of reading. We'd solve that problem. I'm just saying I don't see a reason to pull out the Mueller meter itself. Right. Just if you replace the radio, Rebecca's life is infinitely easier. And then when the Mueller meter fails down the road, you just replace it in normal course.
With a new Neptune meter.
With a new Neptune meter, sure.
What's the
And
figure
the radios can go on the outside of the properties so that they don't go in a pit. They can go on the side of the building. From what I understand, what the Neptune Louis told us is that they go on the side of the building. So nobody has to be crawling through a crawl space. Nobody has to go into a meter pit. They're all right there. So they can just literally drive by, and it's pretty much almost 100% accuracy of a read.
Yeah,
But on the Mueller, the existing Mueller, the radio device, the meter,
Say that one more time.
in the existing Mueller, the radio transmitter is on the meter itself, not outside.
No, it's not. It's not. They're all over the place. Like some of the Mueller radios are in a pit. Some of the Mueller radios are within a crawl space. Some of them are on the outside of the building. So that's why there isn't 100% accuracy in the read.
Well, now the plan to replace all the radios right away. That's one to go. Clear up my problem too.
What's the expected, life cycle of a meter, of the Mueller meters, and how many have failed?
I'm not sure. I think the life expectancy, we've had them for about 10 years and we've had, I don't know, maybe 10, 12 fail. I think give it the next 5 to 10. Yeah, give it the next 5 to 10 years, they'll start to, from what I understand, they'll start to go downhill. So it depends on how soon they were put in, because there were a few brand new Mueller meters put in 2 years ago. But then you have some that are original that are starting not to be able to read, or that are not moving, so that you can't get an accurate read with that. So yeah, I mean, it all depends on when the meter was actually put in. So, and how the weather treats them, if they're in a pit.
The meters themselves typically, I think I don't know what the normal failure mode is, but I think we did ask a couple of people. We asked the Mueller people what the expectation would be, and it's in the 20 to 40 year time frame. I think a lot of times when they fail, it's either because of sediment or something else. But the meter part is mechanical. It's the radio that I think is the more problematic. It's much more sensitive because that's an electronic device. At least that was my understanding. So the meters themselves can last for quite a long time. Eric, you might know better. I don't know what you hear.
I would agree with that. I mean, a lot of different equipment and components, somewhere, realistic is it comes in and around that 20-year mark. Obviously for a whole host of different conditions, how you treat stuff, the environment that it's in, the quality of the water, all those things play in. But I think that's a good baseline number. And you're going to have some failures, but the approach that you're discussing certainly makes sense. You could do a focused effort next spring, summer of replacing all of the radios and moving forward with Neptune and their software and everything else. And then over the next 2 years, 2 to 3 years, it could be 10 meters, 15 meters a year or something like that, or just replace them as they fail. I would think a more planned, focused effort over the next few years to go in and maybe do 20 or 30, starting with the older areas of town and working through would be a better approach. But again, just being conscious of the finances and things like that. There's a lot of different ways to do this effectively.
So Eric, what's the, do we know the cost of just replacing or putting new radios in?
We'd have, kind of looking back on that sheet, it's, I'd have to kind of look at it because, you still got to do the coordination, still got to get into the basement, run the new wire. It should be less time than replacing the meter. I mean, theoretically, swapping out a meter, as long as the piping comes apart, as you would expect, is a fairly quick process. You're undoing 2 fittings, 2 new washers. Actually changing the meter out is probably only 15 or 20 minutes. So running the wiring, making the penetration in the house, mounting the radio outside and things like that, it's probably a good amount of the time associated with the swap out.
But you had numbers, if you can throw them up there, Eric, you did have numbers on the sheet for what at least the meter cost was and the radio cost.
I did. So, you'd be able to take that $126 approximately out for the meter, the O-rings. You still have the wire. So you're looking at a radio of around 100. You're saving that 125. The washers, 60 cents per install. And then the whitewater labor per meter, it's probably pretty close. There's probably a little bit of savings there. But again, management time, tracking, all the other pieces, it's probably close.
The advantage of, we're not prepared to do all the meters yet, mechanical parts. Get this new system, Billy, going, which would help us in the future in planning and in Rebecca's work.
Agreed.
So,
Anybody have a strong feeling about replacing the meters now versus later?
Can we call the question?
okay, which option
Yeah.
did we go with?
Probably B.
Yeah, my gut is just saying replace all the radios and then replace the meters on an ad hoc basis as they fail. I just hate the idea of pulling out good equipment and throwing it out.
And Eric, you're comfortable with that approach?
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, I prefer 2B. I would go for 2B, phasing out the oldest ones first.
Actually, you could do that with the other plan, with that we just discussed. You're talking meters or radios.
All right. Well, so do I hear a motion?
For which?
Why don't I move, replacing the, all the radios and replacing the meters on an ad hoc basis, and we'll either vote that up or down. Not rejecting your idea, Catherine, but put a motion on the table. We'll either vote that one up or down, and if we vote this one down, then we'll vote yours.
Okay.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay. Catherine,
Yes. No, I mean, I prefer the other.
well, it's still the other is still a phased approach, correct?
Yeah. Yeah, but at a different phase.
Okay.
A once in a while versus systematically going through. I'd like to see.
I just had a second thought there. Are
And
we
I'd
still
like
going to
get
be?
us all on one thing. I think that would be really, really a good idea. The faster we can get everybody's doing the same thing, I think the better off we are.
Yes,
So Kurt, did you, I'm confused. Your motion, you were voting, you want option 2, not 2B, correct?
Yeah, my motion is to replace all of the radios. It's a modified 2, replace all of the radios and replace meters as they fail.
So that's 2B, is it not?
No, that's 2.
oh,
It's in between 2 and 2B because both 2 has both a meter and a radio, and 2B has a meter and a radio. And my thought is just replace all the radios and then just replace the meters on an ad hoc
As
basis.
needed. Okay.
take the
As
meters
needed.
out of,
And I know I'm not voting on this, but you can bring Catherine's option in as well. And like, maybe this is next year and the following year could be, X amount of the older meters that you want to go through town. And it may be 20 or 30 meters. The radios are in place, the new system's in place. You're purchasing Neptune meters going forward, but you have a phased plan for the next couple of years to work away at some of the older ones in the system. You have that option anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Yeah, I kind of like the idea of eventually getting rid of all the old meters. Because I think that one of the concerns there would be that it's better that we try to take care of them before they fail than finding out that we've got a failed meter and then we have to schedule getting somebody in there to replace the meter. And so, but if we do it systematically, taking the older ones first, and then I think we might avoid some of the hassles of a lengthy transition.
I mean, I like the idea of updating the whole system and getting it uniform. To me, that's something we really, should emphasize.
Yeah, I mean, I share the concerns, and Jim, I sort of agree, but I do think that, if a meter normally lasts like 20, 30 years, we'd be replacing a lot of meters 10 years before their lifetime.
But
You see what I'm saying?
Also concerned about what the impact would be, say, on whoever has to handle the meter reading process if they're 2 different sets of meters.
No, but there's only one reading process by changing the radios.
And we're confident then that Penachuk would be able to use the data from either meters.
Well, the meter only looks at how much water gets used. That data then gets transferred to the radio, and the radio is what provides the data to the reader. And as long as the radio is a Neptune radio, it doesn't matter whether it's on a Mueller meter or a Neptune meter, you get exactly what you want and it's all uniform. The data is all uniform at that point. One reading system, the Neptune reading system, one software, that simplifies the whole billing process right there. And then it's then you could look at whether you really want to or need to replace the actual hardware, the actual meter itself, the meter socket.
for time, could we do the radios over a shorter period of time if we just did that?
Sure, and we might, if we went forward now, as Eric was saying, next year, we might be looking at a lot more meter failures and saying, you know what, let's just let's do this phased approach. Let's take 40 of them and do them now, and we'll do 40 the following year and 40 the following year, or something like that.
Yeah, or do 100 one year and 100 another and 100
Yeah.
more.
Okay.
I just think
whatever.
we really have to update the whole system is the way I look at it. We had the original thing that, we've been having problems with it and all of that. Let's put ourselves in a position where, everybody's got the same, we've got the latest and what we consider the best. And then we can deal with a lot of other issues besides this.
On option 3, you would want.
No, I think
Three just changes them all and be done with it.
Say again, Tom, I couldn't hear that.
So Pat Carberry wants, what she would really want, and I think it's a good idea, just do option 3. Start this spring and pull up every damn meter and radio and do it. Never mind phasing them in. As fast as we can. And get it done.
Yeah, well, a phase replacement means this much this year, this much next year, full replacement. It would take a while anyway, but
Right? So it wouldn't make any difference. But we would be working towards that. And
The
more
difference it
quickly.
makes, the difference it makes is in terms of the cost to us in each year.
right.
And that if we want to control it as much as we can. And that's why 2B seems to be, a better approach. If we had unlimited funds, then I would say we could go with option 3, but we don't.
End up anyway.
The difference in cost, if I did the math right, if you don't do the meters, you save 37,600. So the savings is not really, really significant between doing the meter and not doing the meter. And this is all of them. So 300 meters at 125.35 is 37,600. So that's all we're talking about as far as the difference between doing them all or not doing them all.
Right.
So not really a big deal.
It's a good point.
Yeah, I mean, let's just
So
do
I'm
it.
more with you, Katri. But I still think we should do it on a phased basis.
Yeah.
I agree with the phased basis as well. It's just, it's a good approach, to be able to do it, but it puts you guys in a good position.
Yeah. Okay, so are we agreed?
What's Tom have to say? So I would move that we replace all of our radios and replace meters on a what do we want, 2-year or 3-year phase?
Unless we have to do it sooner because they fail.
And you've already got the guy in there putting the meter radio in.
Put in
Yeah, I
the
don't think
radio
that-
and put the meter in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't think it'd be a big deal. Do you want 2 years or 3 years?
I want
Two.
3. Start putting them in.
3, 2?
Whatever. I mean, what about this money we got? Can't we use some of that?
I think given it's only 37.5, that's only 15,000 each year. 2 years makes sense to me.
Okay, I second that.
So anyway, that'll be my motion.
We have evolved, right? Yes.
2 year, all right.
Yeah, just to circle back on the amortization costs, what that and again, I had based it on the 122 and some change, so approximately 122,000. And that was 3 years at a increase in fee of about $3,700 a month.
Yeah.
So
you
if we
had
do it in
mentioned
2
that
years,
before.
we're saving, if we do it in 2 years, we're saving,
But I don't believe there's anything to stop us from doing the work in 2 years and, amortizing the cost over 3. We do that in plenty of communities where we've gone out and done the work. That's completed, but the costs are amortized over the years. I mean, theoretically, potentially, you could go in and do it all in the first year, and then you have the costs spread over the 3 years.
okay, yeah, that's even better for us.
That's option 3.
That's 3.
Yep.
So a year is what it would take just to do it, is what you're suggesting, Eric?
Yeah, I mean, I think, again, it's not an incredible amount of meters, but to do it right, with the different planning that's going to be involved, I think it would be across the season, knowing that when a lot of residents are there, it's obviously a busy time as well. So that's the challenge that we're up against in trying to do that along with other activities in the town. So I think budgeting that over a season, it would be the target. And what's worst case scenario is that a certain, whether it be some of the new work that's coming online or, we have to carry some over into the second year. The costs still end up being spread across the 3,
Yeah,
starting with the older projects.
yeah, yeah.
Talking about now, our motion is item 3 and build over 3 years.
Right,
I'll second that.
okay. Then let's take a vote on that. Kateri,
So is it 2 or 3 years, just so I'm sure?
we're doing the work over, as soon as it can be done, but amortizing it over the 3-year period.
All
Okay,
right, perfect. Thank
I
you.
see everybody nodding.
yeah, yes.
Yep.
Kateri says yes. Tom,
Aye.
yes. Kurt,
Kurt?
yes.
Yeah,
Okay. Neil, what's your vote? Is he
Yes.
asleep?
Yes.
Okay.
And
Hey,
I vote
unanimous.
well.
Yay.
great. Finally,
Finally, we have spent a lot of time on this, guys.
I know we have.
Yeah. No, but I think it's a good decision. I really do. I really do.
So,
As I said at the beginning, I apologize for the pause since I got involved in this, but I just wanted to make sure we did our due diligence and everyone was clear on the options on it. Again, ultimately, we've arrived at essentially the same spot, and that's great. And I had the utmost trust in what was presented before by Russell as well, but I just wanted to make sure we were all crystal clear on it. That's all.
Yeah. I think this will also sell well with our clients.
right. Okay, thank you, Eric. I don't know if you have any information for us on the other item that's on here, but the pressure sensor at the storage tank.
Ooh, I talked to John about that. There had been some delay with it. My gut tells me the last conversation that I had with him that the components weren't all in yet. But I will follow up with him first thing in the morning and get an email out to the board. But my last conversation, and Butch was working on it, so it could be in place right now, but I do not believe so.
Okay. Does everybody know what that's about?
Vaguely.
It's the level transducer on the tank that then
Mhm.
calls for the demand in water to fill and things like that. Fortunately, right now with the usage, and we're able to fill the tank manually, and you have time there to be able to manage the usage in the system and things. So, but ultimately, it takes out the automated feature of it just coming on as needed.
what's the fill time right now, Eric, about,
I'd have to confirm with John. I apologize.
but is it like weekly or bi-weekly or every 2 weeks or just roughly
Like twice a week,
once a week?
once to twice a week.
Okay. So
You
it's
know,
not
done-
ridiculous. It's not ridiculous.
Yeah. It's done in conjunction with the work we're already doing and things like that. So as long as it gets buttoned up, hopefully by the end of this week, then we're not running in any additional holidays or anything else, but shouldn't impact water quality, shouldn't impact anything else.
All right. So, I think that's it for what Eric was helping us with on this. And so we've got a few other items. You're welcome to stay online if you want, or if you need to leave, please feel free to do so.
I'm going to leave you guys a little early tonight. My apologies. I got a couple other things to follow up on, but again, with all the information that was presented today, I'm going to put it in a file and I'll share a link over to Rebecca. So it has all of the specific details on this, cut sheets, all the more detailed information, and I'll put them in 2 separate folders, a Mueller folder and a Neptune tie sales folder. And that way Rebecca can communicate that out to the group. And if anybody wants to dig in deeper on the details, you're welcome to know everything that I know on this at this point.
And so if you do find out additional information on the pressure sensor issue, please just get it to Rebecca and she can let us know.
Will do.
And finally, I would ask, I don't know if you've had or been able to get any updated uses information over the last few months, but obviously, more recently with the issue of the E. coli issue, that would have impacted also the amount of water that was pushed through the system. So I don't know if we get a good read on the usage over the last few months.
I'll work with the compliance group and get that sheet that we were working off of previously all updated with current values for you.
Great.
No later than the middle of next week.
Great, thank you.
All right, everyone, have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to run through a couple of things really quickly, and then we can talk about, open some discussion on the issue of the new water main. For the environmental partners contract, I am meeting with the select board this evening. Mike Travato and I are. And the purpose of that is that we're asking the select board to sign the proposed contract with environmental partners, basically for the engineering services for the new water main. The contract has been, was a template prepared by our legal counsel, Kaufman & Page, and environmental partners used that to prepare to add their numbers and their scope of work into it. So that's what's going in front of the select board this evening. Just wanted to let you know that we're doing that. The next item that's on here is the agreement with Mass Works. And I believe that Mike Travato has the document from the Commonwealth now for the agreement. And Maria Broadbent will be signing off on that, which basically initiates the agreement for the $2.5 million that been approved to receive from the Commonwealth for that project. And the last two items that were on here were the discussion around the pipes that could be used for the new water main. And I know Neil has raised some issues about that. And I have reached out to RB Hour on this. I have not heard back from them if they have any recommendations. The question that has been raised is whether or not we should be considering, instead of ductile iron for the water main, whether we should consider using PVC.
Are the mains all layers? They're not the steel with the concrete lining?
All the existing mains that we have all throughout the rest of the system are all ductile iron, except for the old Coles Neck 4-inch line.
I thought we had some concrete line steel.
That is the ductile iron. It's concrete, concrete
It
line.
could be all iron. You don't need the concrete lining. I don't know why they do it. You save
I
money.
don't think, well, I think that the ones that are spec'd or that were spec'd by environmental partners are concrete lined.
Problematic to me. The cost benefit to going to the plastic.
I missed half of that, Tom. Can you move toward the?
Any cost benefit to going to the plastic.
It's a little cheaper according to, the cost of the product itself is a little cheaper. And then the installation is apparently simpler. They can use longer lengths of pipe.
I have no objection.
to me, Neil has a lot to say about this, but to me, the big difference is, with the ductile iron, even though the inside's lined, which helps protect the pipe against the acidic water that we have, when they're installing the ductile, it's much more difficult to install, but they put chains on the pipe to move the pipe around, which does tend to nick the outsides of the pipe. So that, even though you're not going to get a lot of corrosion along a long distance of the pipe, you still have chinks in the armor, so to speak. And then the failures, a couple of the failures that we had were actually couplings on the ductile, and so the couplings have failed, and it's in part because of them being the iron itself being exposed, and then the water causing corrosion that caused the coupling to fail. So, we definitely have very acidic water, rainwater, not just our water that's in the system, but our pH is in the 5s for a lot of our water in the ground, just naturally. So it's very acidic, which is kind of unusual. I was hoping that Paul might be on the call, because I think Provincetown did go to PVC for part of their system. The downside of going to PVC is that, if you've got somebody that's doing some digging in an area, it's not as tough. So it's much easier to puncture a line and, cause a major problem if somebody's doing excavation and they don't, they didn't consult DigSafe properly or whatever. These kind of things happen, but
that's Neil. This is correct, but the PVC, if it is punctured or damaged in some way, it's very easy to fix. Whereas the concrete lining on the ductile iron, if it's compromised in any way, you won't know about it until you have a leak, or that the water can cause incrustation, and you would have reduced water flow over a period of time.
Right, there's a lot more going on with the iron. The iron is not that corrosive, surprisingly enough, unless you have an intrusion. The joints in the iron are the weak point. And the idea of
that's the joints on the ductile iron are built into the pipe. There's a male and a female end,
right.
And almost all the failures are on the female end, where the pipe becomes misaligned, and the stress is so great that it cracks the pipe. Whereas PVC bends with the breeze. And it doesn't very often have a situation of a failure along the lines of the iron pipe.
Pipes are very weak point. The other thing bothers me is the concrete lining. We have low pH. You're dissolving the concrete. That doesn't protect the pipe is better suited to handling the corrosiveness of the water than cement is. That'll leach away. I like the plastic.
How long does plastic last as compared to the iron?
Well, the scientists suggest it will be around for hundreds of years, and it does not corrode or degrade.
So why is there a problem then with just using the plastic?
The industry, the iron pipe industry has a lot at stake, and they urge the engineers to spec iron pipe.
We have to go with the inertia too. People are just used to using iron pipe.
Well,
Change.
hey, I mean, if we're putting something new in, we should use the latest and the best, right? And if that's CVC, then that's what we should use.
I like the plastic.
the way I see it.
Yeah, I personally don't see any downside to using PVC. I mean, I really don't. I see a lot of, I just think iron, it all, we all,
The connections are a lot easier to make on PVC than iron.
So let's do PVC then, huh?
Well, I heard question as to why maybe we should have Paul Millette on the line before that decision gets made.
Did you say you would touch base with Robert Hour?
I did call. I'm waiting to hear back from them.
Because they would, they're the preeminent installer on the Cape. So that their judgment would be considered important.
Well put.
and I'd feel better. I mean, I'd feel better hearing from the experts too, both Robert Bauer and Paul. They've got a lot of experience with what's out there and why, and you know, I think we want to rely on our experts.
Okay, well, let's do that.
I'd be happy to set that up, get them on our next agenda.
Not that Neil isn't our expert. I mean, I'm with you on this, Neil, but
Neil's been for plastic as long as I've been on this commission.
I'm with them.
I've worked with both, and I'll just soon take it.
I've been
Certain
working with
circumstances.
PVC for almost 47 years.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Good for you.
I would never consider iron pipe for any reason.
Okay,
Worry
well,
about a high temperature, and we aren't gonna get anywhere near that.
So I'm happy to set that up. Ask,
okay, let's do it that
for
way.
the-
Yeah,
I mean, we don't have to make a decision on this tonight. This is
Mhm.
just, they have to, as they start their specs, they have to, they have to. be able-
yeah, we've got to come to a decision soon.
Any other thoughts on that?
Sounds like a plan, Jim.
All right, I will go ahead and get them in on this. And the other item that we have on here is on the financial model, and Kurt had provided us with a kind of a proposed
Short list here.
short list to develop an RFP.
Mhm.
Uh,
Looks good to me.
Yeah, I like it.
So if we're okay with this, I will turn this over to Mike Travato, ask him to put this into a format that could be then used for an RFP.
Good.
Thank you,
But
Kurt.
Sure.
Kurt, you
Yeah,
want to
thanks a lot.
explain what the status is with the funding that we had for consultants?
Yeah, leading question. So basically the monies that were allocated for water and wastewater at the last town meeting
That was
are,
2015.
they're mysteriously unknown in terms of their whereabouts. Hillary, we had, obviously we had some issues with the town treasurer. Hillary went to get a bill paid last week, and the town accountant said, I have no idea where that money is. As far as they were concerned, that there was no money in the budget whatsoever. So she's actually chasing down where that money is. Dan had already provided before he left a very detailed explanation of the authorization, the split between water and wastewater, how to set up the fund. And this was also sent to the town accountant and the treasurer, but I don't know if they didn't place the funds in an account or what exactly happened. And I don't want to speculate, but It's being worked on, Jim.
Have you hired an auditor or something?
I was working on the bandstand years ago. And we all of a sudden $10,000 wasn't there. We don't know where it ever went.
Help.
Yeah, so anyway, we'll have more information on that shortly, but
Let us hope, right?
that certainly
But that won't
budget.
stop from submitting this to Mike so that you get an RFP started.
Right.
Yeah, that'd be great.
So, the only other thing that we have on here is the minutes from the meeting of November 18th.
Okay, I saw one thing that was omitted. Tom was not listed as an absent member.
I will fix that. Hang on.
That's unusual for you, Rebecca. You're usually the perfect person.
I thought I was persona non grata or something.
Yeah,
I know. I don't know what,
Tom was
I don't know what's
just
gotten
left
into
off the
me.
list, right?
Okay.
That was the only thing I saw missing from the notes. The rest seemed to make sense.
Let me see.
I move that we approve those minutes.
So here's second.
Second,
Okay. So there's three of you can vote on this. Katharine,
Yes.
Neil,
yes.
and Kurt.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
They are amended.
Hey, maybe we're getting somewhere, you know that?
So I would ask that the next thing we should discuss is when we're going to meet next. We're already into December now.
Yeah, I thought we agreed on that already, didn't we? No, I guess we didn't. Well, 2 weeks from today is what? The 22nd?
Does that work for folks?
I won't be here.
What date again, Jim?
Yes, you said the 22nd.
If we just go
22nd? Yeah, I'll be here.
22nd, not 7th.
Okay, I
Yeah.
thought you said 7. Okay.
No, 22nd. Okay, well, let's do that. Huh?
It works for me.
Okay, I will put it in for you.
4 o'clock.
4 o'clock.
What's going to happen when we can't do virtual meetings?
That's going to be a long way away from what I understand, so don't even worry about it now.
A long time.
You mean maybe the Board of Selectmen will agree that this is an okay way to meet?
I think they like it.
That is
So-
fine.
I think we have to have our governor say that we can continue to do it.
Right. No, we've
No,
got to get a
actually, we
mic
could-
for Tom. Tom, we've got to get you a mic somehow that we can hear you, because I missed about half of what you said through the
Can't
whole
figure out
meeting.
why it's not working, because I did the audio check before I started.
Yeah, you know what I think it might be, Tom, is it could be your internet connection. And because you're doing video and voice over the same connection, if your actual throughput rate isn't, and I don't know what the minimum needs to be, but if you're not much above like, probably 10 megabits per second, it might be that is just throttling the amount of data that can come back. Because you're
Okay.
hearing us, right?
You can just
I'm
use your
hearing you
phone.
fine.
Yeah, so it might be an upload thing because the upload rate is slower than the download rate.
Generally, it is.
So it just could be your internet.
Just use your cell phone. Just use your cell phone and Zoom. One this way and have the other. That would work, right?
Done that also, yeah. Okay,
Okay,
do it.
Okay, well,
nothing else, then.
Motion to adjourn?
Adjourn. Second,
Second,
everybody in favor? Oh,
aye.
Hi.
all right. Thank you very much.
Thank
Good
you,
night,
Jim.
everybody.
Thank you, Rebecca.
Thank you.
Thank you,
You're welcome.
Gail.
And thanks, Jim, for all the
Bye,
extra work you're
everybody.
putting in. I really appreciate it. I know it's more than you bargained for, I'm sure.
No, it's fine.
I'll
So
see you all in
it's
2
exciting
weeks.
the fact that we've got, there's a lot more interest in water now in terms around town. We've had
Yeah,
number
yeah.
of people approach us about you know, and new connections. And as Rebecca was saying, we've got the potential of some properties on Squire Pond Lane that are interested in water.
Oh, good.
I wonder if the word's getting around that, you know, like the arrangement that we made with Masonic, if people are hearing that and saying, you know, hey, we can get together and get water.
Maybe so. That
Well,
would make
I
sense.
mean,
Very
I
well
know
could be.
that's something that, that was being done up in Orleans, that when they were doing subdivisions there, that the way they were connecting was by, you know, building out the system in those subdivisions and paying for it, and that it was essentially their connection.
Hmm.
Well, it's great. It's great. And a lot of the praise goes to you, Jim. I think getting that grant really, you know, makes a big difference. And I think your leadership here on the committee is certainly helping get a lot more people interested in water.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was a cat's tail. Sorry. I have a question on that. Does anybody have any other ideas of other sources for potential grant funding?
USDA.
The problem is that if they do a loan, they're going to want to be in first position.
But if
I
they
could
do,
reach out to them.
but if they do the whole thing, I'm thinking like you're thinking for the meters.
I'm thinking like we're still shy of 1.3 million on the water main project.
Oh, on the main, but town approved the balance.
True.
So it's, you know, but in terms of, I mean, USDA is the only one that I can, you know, that comes to my mind. Everything else is loan. I can't think of any grant sources.
I'll reach out to them.
I mean, even if they came back with, I'm a little pessimistic on federal and state cooperation. So I you know, I hear you on this. We just with the dredge project, the town of Wellfleet could not directly piggyback on the federal contract for dredging. In other words, the federal government goes out and they get a bid, they come back, it's this much per cubic yard to remove the material. We couldn't simply do an add-on that says, okay, we want to take that number that you've just bid and apply it to our section of the project, which is different set of approvals and permits or whatever, but we couldn't contractually actually add on to that contract. So, you know, Jim's caution here is that, you know, sometimes USDA and Mass Works can't find a way to work together or play ball, but, you know, I hear that, but I think it's worth at least a shot.
Yeah, I'll give them a call. All right, well, thank you
Okay.
again, folks.
Mask
Hi,
up.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Take care. See you next time.